What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the ARC Podcast. If you are new, thank you for joining. I am your host, Brandon Zachary. This is the Athletes Resilience Center podcast where we talk all things mental performance in sports, run with my co-host, Matt Owens. Today, we have a really cool episode with pitcher in the Mets organization, Justin Hagenman. Matt and I played against Justin growing up in sports. He's a South Jersey guy. Played at Bishop Eustace High School, went to Penn State out of high school, pitched at Penn State, pitched with Devin Smeltzer and Jack Brandt, who we had on the podcast previously, also from Bishop Eustace. So Justin went to Penn State, then he got drafted by the Dodgers out of college. He got traded to the Red Sox and then got signed by the Mets. And he has a very unique story. He goes over a lot of the adversities that he's faced throughout his high school, collegiate, and professional career so far. He definitely had an interesting story about getting signed to the Mets with an MLB contract, despite not having any MLB innings yet. So really cool insights, really cool perspectives from Justin. Very appreciative for him to come on. So thank you guys again for tuning in and enjoy the rest of the episode. Hey Justin, how's it going? Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to kind of talk through a couple things today, and then have a good conversation.
Yeah, awesome, man. So again, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. And then as we do every episode, I'll just tee it right back to you, so you can kind of run everyone through your journey and kind of how you got to where you are today, right now.
Yeah, sounds good. Obviously, I'm from New Jersey, from Voorhees, New Jersey. I went to Bishop Eustace for high school. We played against each other, obviously. It was good. High school up there, it was good. Like we talked about earlier, we kind of had a pretty talented group growing up, so it was a good time. And then from there, went to Penn State. Well, I wasn't positive, like I wasn't a dream school or anything.
Yeah.
It was kind of just that's the way it worked out, and I wouldn't trade those 3 years for anything. It got me better as a player. Obviously, had a good time at school there, and then from there parlayed that into getting drafted in the 23rd round to the Dodgers. Had a pretty good 3 years in college. Came on. I was able to start all 3 years, luckily. So that was one thing that I am very grateful for. Obviously, you go somewhere else, that might not be the case. So started every game in college for 3 straight years. We weren't the best team, but it was a little different. Like we talked about. In high school, we were really good. I was always on pretty good teams. And then when I went to college, and we weren't the greatest team in the world. So that was a little bit of something to get through. But I kind of used it as a time. Like I got myself a whole lot better. I felt like that's where I really learned how to pick and choose who you listen to.
Yeah.
A little bit. Obviously college is a little more structured than pro ball or whatever, to where you there's a little more structure and guidelines from everybody, but you can also create your own path a little bit. So I learned that there. And then, like I said, drafted by the Dodgers, was there for 5 years. And, from 2018 to 2023, got traded over to the Red Sox at the deadline in 23. Then played a year and a half there. And then this was my first offseason being a free agent after that. And I signed a deal with the Mets. It was almost a can't refuse deal. Obviously, I had no idea how free agency was going to go. I had never done it. I was just 7 years with 2 teams, the team I was drafted by and the team I got traded to. So you don't get to pick those teams. And then, it was interesting, like going through the free agency process for the first time. You kind of get to see a little more insight on some of the different orgs and how they see you, and and that type of thing. And then yeah, we landed with the Mets and happy with where we're at so far, and ready to keep going with it.
Yeah, thanks for going through all that, and where you started in high school to where now you ended up with the contract with the Mets. So bringing it back to high school, like you talked about, you guys had a lot of success at Bishop Eustace. Obviously, playing against you guys, it was never an easy feat in high school. And you guys, obviously, we talked about this with Devin, and we talked about this with Jack as well. You guys had at the time an elite high school rotation, and then looking back, it's even more elevated and
Yeah,
elite now. You got four guys that one played professional baseball and two signed MLB contracts. That's like unheard of. That's crazy. Also speaks to kind of how underrated South Jersey baseball is, in my opinion, on the global scale. But from your perspective, right, you're around those guys, Zach Allen, Devin Smeltzer, Tyler Phillips, and then yourself, of course. How important was that, do you think, to your, I guess, development and process? Because every day at practice, like, you're competing against future big leaguers, Like, it's very unique. How do you think that helped you, I guess, progress into one, getting ready for college, and then two, getting ready for pro ball?
yeah, it's wild. I mean, the rotation just gets better with time. Really,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
really it's still getting better to this day. I mean, it's like how much better can everyone get? But
yeah,
it keeps going. It's crazy. But I think it actually, minus Tyler, it started when we were young. I mean, I played
yep,
with Zach and Devin when growing up. I mean, I was what I guess I was 7 or 8, started
yeah,
playing with those guys. And obviously Zach was 2 years older, Devin was a year older. But that whole group of guys that and there was a couple others that we played with from Voorhees that went to Eustis as well. Um, but that whole group of guys was just like it was different. It was a winning team. It was a winning culture, and like I said, yeah, John Panchella, Nick Brown, like all those
yeah,
guys grew up from Voorhees, went to Eustis, and then like when we got to Eustis, it was like we were already used to winning. These guys knew what they were doing. They knew how to compete. They knew how to win. So it was like there was no losing ever. And I think that's a big thing. Like you have to realize that it takes a lot. Like you have to hate to lose. It's like not a good feeling, right?
yeah.
So I think we grew up with that the whole time when we were younger, and then it led through high school, and obviously you get more guys from other towns that are the same way, and they fill right in, and yeah, it's just wild to watch. Like I can go back to like Zach when he was younger, and it's like he was always better than everybody. He was always just a little better than everybody. It's like
Yeah.
it just stays that way. But it was like he was always just miles ahead mentally, and obviously he was a little older, but it was like you could see something was different. And then yeah, we get to high school with that group, and holy cow, I don't know how I know Devin said I don't know how we didn't win, but we won a lot of games, and we had a good time doing it. And like I said, that culture was pretty good of just winning and always yeah, hating to lose, I guess, was a big thing.
Yeah, and then you brought it up too. I don't think I've talked about this with anyone else who's come on, but you said like you've been playing with those guys since you were 7, and some of them were like 8 and 9. And just knowing you from playing against you growing up, like I do remember like we played you in middle school or whatever, and yeah, I had teammates that played with you, and it's like, oh, this kid throws really hard, and it's like, okay, and then they're like, and he's younger than everyone, and it's like, oh, damn. So like, how when you're that young, you know what I mean? Like it's really easy one to kind of get a big head from that because obviously one you're playing up like you said with Zach. I guess he's 2 years older than you,
Yeah.
and then you're playing with guys at least one grade older than you
Mhm.
at all times, and you're succeeding. Like at a lot of those levels, like you were still known as a kid that's going out there and dominating, even though you're younger than everyone else. How do you kind of take that as like just the conversations I've had from you? I can tell you don't really have a big head. How do you not let that get to your head, especially getting into high school where like I'm going to be a freshman at Bishop Eustace. This rotation is great, but like I am also great. How do you manage like not getting a big head, but also having confidence when you go out there, like that you have had success in the past playing with older guys?
I think it's that. I think like I don't know. I never lacked confidence, especially growing up. I mean, I always was pretty good, obviously. But that being said, like with those guys, and they were a year older, so like I never felt like I was the best player on the team, even when I was like that young and
Yeah.
growing up. So it's like you're just doing everything you can to be your best at that time and be the best on that team. It's like, but those guys are older, maybe a little more mature at that time. So like I was good, but maybe I wasn't the best player on the team.
Yeah.
Um, so then, but like that gets you ready. Like I was playing up already from a young age, and then that gets you ready for like middle school. I was, obviously you play with a couple guys, a grade above or whatever, and then yeah, that really gets you ready for high school. I think I didn't really hit freshman year of high school, but I was able to get up there right away, pitch as a freshman, and it wasn't really like it was anything new to me. I feel like I was kind of always playing. I have a brother who's a couple years older than me. I played with his team a couple times. Like I was always just pitching like against kids that were
Yeah.
older than me. I didn't really see it as a thing um, to where it was anything different.
Yeah.
And like I said, like I wasn't used to winning and beating kids because I was that much like better than everybody. I feel like I was able to just compete with like with how I could say like how I can pitch and my
Yeah.
pitchability and stuff. I kind of learned that from a pretty young age, and I think that part of that is because I was playing with kids older than me. Like I couldn't just. I know you said I was like I threw harder, but I didn't like throw harder than kids 2 3 years older than me when I was
Yeah.
that.
Of
It's
course.
like that stuff was kind of came along with me through the ride, I guess.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, you guys definitely. I mean, going into high school, starting as a freshman at Eustis is pretty impressive. And then from there, like you talked about, had all those guys there, and like you said, it was kind of just another day in the office because again, like you had been playing with guys older than you, and all that. Were there any then growing pains going from playing at Eustis, having success, and then going to Penn State. And like you said, you ended up being a starter, and I think you were freshman All American, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I had a good freshman year.
So you had success right away, but were there any growing pains? Because I know, like, when I went to college, the fall, you're juggling class, you're juggling like you're kind of free for the first time from everything, and it's like, all right, now I have to manage my own schedule, my own time, and then you have baseball on top of that, and of course that's the main objective. It's what you want to do, it's what you want to be good at. So were there any like mentally, did you have to juggle a lot of things once you got on campus, or was it like I'm dialed in and ready to go right away?
I feel like the mental side of all that is like what I've kind of excelled at.
Yeah.
Even from that young, and probably because of the young age where I was playing with guys older than me and getting used to new situations and new scenarios. I think the bigger thing was like how were we dealing with uh, like a team that's not having the success that I'm used to.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I mean, like you said, I had a good freshman year. Like my first start in college, I think I went. I mean, granted, it wasn't against the best competition. I think I went like 7 innings, no runs, and it was like,
Yeah.
is this just another day? And
Yeah.
then I think like my first fall, going back a little bit, but my first fall, I don't think I pitched out of the stretch.
Yeah.
Like I just had a really good fall. It was kind of just like it's just baseball. I didn't really think of it as
Yeah.
this is another level. These guys could be better than me. These guys could be really, too much better. And that stays true today to this level that we're playing at. But yeah, I think it was just like that's my strength, being able to be myself and mentally kind of just stay composed and um, just stay true to myself. So the baseball that transition wasn't as difficult. I think it was facing like the failures and
Yeah.
the team not having the success and not and trying not to let that like drag you down a little bit, or if stuff's hitting the fan around you, like how can you still be yourself? And that was kind of my biggest issue downfall in college, or like I did let it get to me. My sophomore year I was not very good. My junior year I had a pretty good bounce back, but it was probably still not to where I thought I could have been. So it's like, obviously looking back, I think there's some things I could have done different, but at the same time, it's like, that's how you learn. Those are the things you're learning from. I think my sophomore year, I might have went like 1-11 or something like that.
Yeah.
And there was games where I think I pitched better than a 1-11 record.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I also let that get to me a little bit.
Of
So
course.
finding a way for that not to happen, and obviously, like I said, that was part of the learning experience of it.
Yeah, you mentioned like sophomore year 1-11 record, right? You said you're kind of dealing with failures that you probably hadn't dealt with in the past, especially for like a season long, I guess, time period. So how do you come back? You jump back junior year, have a good year, get drafted. How do you go from, again, like we just said, you pitch better than a 1-11 record, but mentally speaking, you're looking at, I had a 1-11 record. How do you bounce back from that and then come back and have that junior year that's like, okay, now this catapulted me to be able to go chase my dream and get drafted? Because I'm sure a lot gets in the way mentally, and you could have let that affect you even more than you did. So I'm sure you implemented some things that might have helped you from sophomore year to junior year kind of dial in a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that was the difference between kind of being on a team that wasn't winning for the first time ever.
Yeah.
Um, like when you're on a team that's winning and you're struggling, it's like you have to figure it out
Yep.
quick,
Yep.
or you're gonna kind of get left behind.
Yeah.
If you're struggling and the whole team's struggling, it's just like, oh, I'm just another guy on the team.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I had a team struggling for that long, kind of everybody struggling together. Like when we were in high school, I know you don't really, you know, high school, you're not expected to struggle for a whole year, but even if you struggle for a game, it's like, all right, we got to get this
Yeah.
back on tracks. Like these guys around us, if we lose a game in high school, we're not in a good spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that's what happened. It was like, you pitched a bad game, you let up a couple runs in high school. It's like, all right, figure it out right now.
Yeah.
And everybody else is right there with you to like kind of be chasing along the way because they're not slowing down. Like when I was in high school, when Smeltz was a senior, he was having like the best year of his of anyone. So it's like I'm a junior and I'm trying to chase that. Like if I stumble along the way, what am I? I'm not catching him. It's like so that's part of it. And then figuring out how to like avoid that, I guess,
Yeah.
was my part of my junior year. And I think I had a couple guys that on my team, like I had a roommate who got drafted the year before me. So he was that sophomore year, he was a junior, and I was like kind of watching him, and he was doing all the things like we kind of touched on earlier. He was kind of creating his own path in college. Like he was doing all this extra stuff. He was taking other measures, just doing whatever he could to get drafted.
Yeah.
Because that was his goal. I mean, it was always, it's always your goal to play in the major leagues, but I didn't really see it as like, all right, you have to pitch for your junior year. Like freshman year, I was just trying to pitch and start. Same with sophomore year. And then like junior year, I was like, all right, well, this is what he did. Like I have to do whatever I can to
Yeah.
set myself up for the draft year. So I kind of did things a little different that year. I had a better plan with the strength coach.
Yeah.
I had probably a better relationship with the strength coach that year. I had a better relationship in the training room that year. So it was like kind of just, this is going to be me. Like if the team, obviously you don't want to be disconnected from the team, but if the team's going to be struggling, like I'm not going to fall into that. I'm going to push myself above everything. And that's going to help the team win. Like I'm going to go out there on Friday night, and if I compete as well as I can, like that's where we're pushing the team forward as best as we can. So I think it was just like setting myself up better and not letting myself fall into that like repeatedly
Yeah.
kind of struggling over and over. So that was junior year, and it turned out well. I still had some bumps, obviously. Still had probably, like I said, wasn't my best year ever, but did enough and proved to myself that like, yeah, the velo is going to climb, the stuff's good enough. So that was the importance of junior year, I think.
Yeah. And obviously you had success freshman year, like you said, and then you had the bounce back junior year, and that's awesome. And now I'm kind of going back to freshman year just for a second because we talked about this before, Matt and I, on a podcast about like internal and external pressures. So, like freshman year, obviously, freshman All American, like pitched really well. And then, did you feel any kind of either external or internal pressures after having a successful year going into sophomore year? Because I can speak from Matt and I were talking about this. My sophomore year in college, I had a really good year. And then going into junior year, I feel like I put so much pressure on myself. It wasn't necessarily external stuff, but like internally, I'm like, I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to be this. I got to be that. And, after a while, you kind of lose who you were in your sophomore year or for you in your freshman year a little bit. Did you feel any of that like pressure either internally or externally?
Yeah, not in the beginning of the year. In the beginning of the year, I thought like I was throwing well. I was like, all right, this stuff's going bad. Like you might have a couple hiccups here, but like I'm still myself. And then um, you have a couple games where it happens, and then a couple more games where it's bad luck, and then
Yeah.
it's like, all right, how it's really piling on.
Yep.
Now I'm feeling it like, all right, I'm 1-5 now. I need to win, like stuff like that. And then I think I threw a game where I threw maybe 8 innings, 1 run, and like we lost, and I was like, all right, like this is really like you have to be you feel like you have to be perfect at
Of
times.
course.
And I think that was the struggle for me that year. It was like I felt like I had to be perfect at all times. At that, like maybe halfway through the year, maybe like when Big Ten play started, is probably when it hit me, and that's when the pressure kind of started adding on. And then I think by the end of that year, I was like, all right, like kind of get this year over with, right? And
Yeah.
I feel like I pride myself in not being that guy, not being like the get to the finish line, like whatever we can do, like kind of treat each start as a start and an opportunity to get outs and put up zeros. And
Yeah.
I think that year it was like, all right, like how do we just finish this
Yeah.
basically? And then I was actually scheduled. I was supposed to go to Cape that year
Yeah.
for summer ball, and I was like, I'm gonna show up here like whatever 1-11, like, and I'm supposed to be playing with some of the best guys in the country. It's like
Yeah.
this is just not going well. I ended up going for 2 weeks and then called it. Went home for the summer and just kind of relaxed to just refresh basically.
Yeah.
Because I think that was what was needed at the time. It was like I just went through just a heck of a year of struggles and um, yeah, and then that led to that whole transition to junior year. But there was definitely pressure. Um, Probably both, probably by myself, probably by the team. It didn't feel that way going into that year,
Yeah.
but it caught up with me, I think.
Yeah. And you brought up the refreshing after being in the Cape Cod and being like, I gotta call it now and then just go home and like decompress, detach. We were talking about this. I think Jack brought it up in a good point. He talks about like compartmentalization. So there's like obviously you on the field, and then Jack's case, he was like, there's you on the field, there's military you, and then there's personal life. So for you, obviously, there's on the field and there's your personal life, right? How important do you find it? Because I'm always interested in this. I think this is something I struggled with in college, especially. Like, how do you go about making the distinction and separation between like, okay, this is me in baseball and then this is me off the field? Because I think my opinions have changed on that a lot. Where in college I was like, baseball, 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 this is the only thing I need to be like worried about, and it kind of bleeds into your personal life a little bit where you could be as high as you want when you're pitching well, but when you're not, you're about
Yeah,
as low
for
as it
sure.
can get. Like, how important is it for you now? Obviously you're engaged, like you have a personal life outside of baseball. How important is it to separate the two for you?
Yeah, I mean that specifically has come a long way. I mean, if you look at it in college, I think like freshman year, I was just a college kid. Like I didn't really feel any different, and
Yeah.
that's probably part of the success. Like I just felt like a college kid doing
Yeah.
normal freshman stuff. Same thing with sophomore year, really. I mean, like I said, there was just pressures added throughout the year as
Yeah.
the failures happened, but I didn't really feel anything different. Then junior year was the year I fully like I was all in on the draft. I was like all in. I was like, whatever we have to do to uh,
Yeah.
figure out how to get this done. I mean, I was eating different. I was going to sleep earlier. Like
Yeah.
I was doing stuff that I wouldn't think would happen.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't think it was overboard. I think it worked out.
Yeah.
At
Definitely.
that point, I was like, this is what we need to do. This is how it's going to get done. Like, here we go. I don't think it like took away from my college experience.
Yeah.
So there was that. And then if we take that same question to now, it's like
Yeah.
it's really developed.
Yeah.
I think the first year I felt really good about separating home and field was probably 2023, and that was probably my best year.
Yeah.
Like I was actually living, my fiance at the time, she was, we started dating that the year before. I lived with her, so that was like the first year I was like living in a house like 20 minutes away from the field,
Yeah.
25 minutes away from the field, whatever it was, in Oklahoma City. So I was like, I got to go home, sit on a couch, like completely get away from
Yeah.
baseball, get away from everything. And then when you go to the field, it's the field. I think that was the first year that I was really able to do that. Because prior to that, I was living in hotels. Even if it was an apartment, it was like, you still kind of feel like you're at the field sometime. You're living with a roommate. You're living with a roommate who's on the team who you go home and you're still talking about baseball. Like,
Yeah.
And I think it's cool. Like I love what I do. Everyone loves what they do. But you're also doing it. You get to the field at 12, 1 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game, and then you're there until 11 o'clock. It's like maybe that's enough,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that year in 23 was the first year I kind of really realized what that difference was. You have to have a life, like just being able to sit there on a couch and like watch a TV show, like not baseball, watch something other than baseball.
Yes.
Have real like dinners, almost like eat a breakfast in the morning away from the field, like not thinking about, all right, when am I going to go to the field? So that was probably the first year. But before that, it was like I said, I was living in apartments, and everything is just baseball, 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 and it kind of, as good as I feel like I am mentally, like you're just always thinking about it. So it's not. It's really just like subtly just adding on. And you don't realize it, and maybe not as much until you do it the other way. And I think that's kind of what got me to realize it, is doing it the other way and living like kind of a normal life on the side.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much value in that because, I mean, I know so many people that, they're in baseball, especially pitchers. Pitchers get so domed up about everything. Like, you can throw and then you can go home and you think you're like decompressing, but you're like on your phone looking at like mechanical videos or like looking at new drills you can implement, looking at like, oh, this is an interesting plyo ball exercise. Like I'd like to try this tomorrow. It's like you're not really shutting it down. It's just like it's constantly.
Well, you might tell yourself you are, but like, and then I think that year I like unfollowed everything baseball on Twitter, and like I wasn't doing anything baseball related. I remember my first year in pro ball, 2018. I was in Ogden, Utah, and I was playing our game, and then I was coming home. I was watching like anybody that I knew play in pro ball, like following their stats, like anything and everything, and I was like, holy, and I loved it, and like it was great, and it probably didn't take away from much, but it probably didn't let me get that like that sense of normalcy outside of baseball to really then love it when you're there quite as much. So yeah, it's definitely a different aspect now for me.
No, I completely agree. I feel that. I feel like in college that was like really big for me, where like you'd pitch and then you'd either do well or not, and then you like just look around and you're like, oh, let's see how like this kid I played with in high school is doing. Let's see how like this other friend I'm doing. Like you're just consuming it, and it's like maybe if you didn't pitch well, maybe just like shut it down and not focus on that. But you're just so obsessed with it,
Yeah. Now I'll literally look up like my best friends, see how they're doing every couple weeks, and that's it. And then reach out to them and all that. But that's about it. I mean, so there's another funny story. So like I went from that in 23, and then living in a house 25 minutes away from the field, to last year I get to Worcester, and in the minor leagues now they have you hooked up with living. They give you apartments, right? So great deal. Like they pay for it, they figure it out for you, they
Yeah.
set it up. So I get there, and I get there late, like after everybody. So I'm there. I think I fly in, maybe arrive to the area around like 2 a.m. Right,
Yeah.
and me and my roommate, we get up to our room, and I have 4 floor to ceiling windows in my bedroom facing the stadium. Polar Park, right next to my room, and it's literally right across the street. And the lights are always on, and
Yeah.
I don't have curtains that like block it out yet. And I was just like, oh, I can't get away from it, because that was at the time I had realized that like I kind of like the drive away from the field. Like I
Yeah.
like getting away from it. I like not being here all the time. Like when I'm here, I'm here, but when I'm not, I'm not. So I mean, maybe 2 weeks in, I requested a room change,
Yeah.
and it worked. It really did. It made a difference. But that was another funny aspect of that.
Yeah. We our first interview actually was Donovan Casey, and I think you played with him,
Yep.
right, with the
Mm-hmm.
Dodgers.
Yeah.
So, like, I grew up playing. I played travel with Donovan, and hearing like his perspective on the same conversation we're having too is really funny because it's very much so kind of like what you just said, where I felt, and he felt the same. I felt like a level of guilt where if you're like in baseball season or you're like training for something, like right when I graduated college, I was going to a bunch of indie ball tryouts. That was like, okay, you know, whatever. It didn't work. No affiliate teams, whatever. Like now let's get on the indie ball grind and see where we can go. But I would be so hard on myself. I remember when like my buddies who were home, like we all just started living at home for the first time since before college, and it's like, hey, want to hang out? Like, want to do something? And I'm like, yeah, I do, but like, you feel that level of guilt almost. Where DC was saying the same thing, where it's like he's in the cage until 9 p.m. and it's like, hey, you want to hang out? And he's like, I really do, but like, there's this level of guilt. Like, if I go hang out with you, like, I feel like I'm not doing everything in my power to get better. But you almost need that reset, and having those relationships with family, friends, girlfriends, wives, fiancés is like super important. And I feel like you don't really get that, I don't know, perspective until you've gone through like the phase of having that level of guilt, I guess it is, like where you're like, oh, I need everything I need to do needs to be involved in getting me better.
Yeah, and so another side of it, like I feel like I've played with a lot of guys now, and a lot of guys that have played at the major league level for a while. Um, People do it different. People
Yeah.
do it different ways, and some ways work for some people, some ways don't. Some people are at the field literally all day, all night. Some people get there late. Some people do their work quick. Some people like to take their time. It's just there's different ways to do it. I feel like there's sometimes like if you're getting to the field early, kind of just to get there, and that's you, sure. But if you're getting there early, just like to sit around and like you feel like you're wasting time,
Yeah.
you don't have to you don't have to get there that early if you're gonna. You got to find what works for you, and like how you're gonna make the most out of your time, and like if that's sitting in your chair at the locker, like that's you.
Yeah.
If it's getting to the field 30 minutes later, and you're just gonna get there and get your work in, and that's it, that's you. There's just different ways to go about all this stuff. So yeah, there's I don't know. You can pick and choose like what you want to learn from somebody, but yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah, definitely. And now when you were talking about kind of learning a lot of this when you went to pro ball, right? Obviously, pro ball is a lot different than college, and obviously, pro ball is a lot different than high school. And like you said, your main objective when you were younger is like throwing zeros, winning games, right? And it's like there's a team camaraderie, and even at Penn State, I'm sure like even if you guys the record didn't show it, like I'm sure your team was close knit and you're like playing for each other, you're fighting, you're with a lot of those guys for 3 or 4 years, like it's it's like a family. And then now you go into pro ball, you get drafted, and there's this like perception of minor league affiliate baseball that it's a business one, which is true, but you're almost not, you don't have that, I guess, team camaraderie is like the perceived, I guess, message from the outside. It's like everyone's, the goal is to make it to the major leagues, so everyone's kind of out for themselves, I guess. One, what was your experience with that once you got into pro ball? And two, I guess, how do you like navigate, I want to be a part of this team and we want to win, but you're also like, I also kind of got to do what's best for me in order to get where I want to go.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I was really lucky. I feel like I was really lucky with getting drafted by the Dodgers.
Yeah.
I think Devin said it too. Like, it's hard to get through the system, but when you start in that system, it is like the best thing, bar none. Like,
Yeah.
their player development, their culture, all of it was just amazing, right? So
Yeah.
there was never stress. There was never, their whole thing was like no rules. So you were relaxed going to the field. You were comfortable being there. You were you had all the help you needed. Like, you had every resource. So I don't think there was any like stress or like people are out to get you. Like, I think they made it really easy for you to play well.
Yeah.
And then as you move up, like, I think probably by the time I got to Double A, I had played with these guys. I had been with them, the same couple guys, for a couple years, and it's like at that point, it's like, all right, these are my good friends. We're getting a drink after the game. Like, it's just a good time, and that makes it. And we were pretty good, right? Because it's the Dodgers, so that makes it really easy to then play. So yeah, I think it's different. It's for sure different, like a whole different vibe than college or high school or whatever. But in the end, they made it really easy, and I think I was lucky to end up in that org.
Thank you for listening to the ARC podcast. This episode is sponsored by the Philly Pretzel Factory of Marlton, located on North Maple Ave in Marlton, New Jersey.
Tell them Matt and Brandon sent you. We appreciate all your support. Thank you for listening, and back to the podcast.
Then you also got traded to the Red Sox. And obviously you were with the Dodgers for a couple years, and then that trade happens. How did you deal with that mentally? Because I'm sure like you just spoke very highly of the Dodgers, and then now you're going to an unknown world. Obviously, Red Sox, really well renowned organization, and like history precedes itself. It's one of the best organizations you could go to. But how do you prep for that mentally? And it's like, oh crap, now I got to go. Like, I had this family that you just talked about. Now I got to go and kind of start over with the Red Sox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was. Going back to the Dodgers, like I was with them for 5 years, and it's like, yeah, like you said, it's those are your good friends, and just like you have that comfortability within the organization. You finally know all the coaches, every single staff member, like who they are, stuff about them. If somebody new comes in, like you're comfortable with them coming in because you've been there, everything. So it's like you have that comfortability for a couple years, and then I was in Oklahoma City for a year and a half. So it was like I felt like I was where I was, and that was it. But like I said, it's easy to come up in that org. It's very hard to keep making it up and keep doing it and make the major leagues there. So it's like when I got traded, I was happy. I saw it as a really good opportunity, so I had a really good mindset about it. I didn't think there was like as well as I threw. I didn't really think there was a spot for me to move up with the Dodgers at the time. So that was another like kind of a mental, not a mental, I get like a mental, like you have to stay strong about this because I was probably having the best year of my life. Like, they had me relieving, starting, doing everything, and I was putting up really good numbers in a pretty hitter friendly league. And then it was just like, all right, there's still guys getting called up in front of you. So how do you just keep doing it? And I don't know. I feel like I was just throwing so well, like there was nothing that was going to stop me at that point. And like I said, I was comfortable off the field that year. I was comfortable doing everything that year. So things were just clicking. But like I said, I was ready for the opportunity when I got traded. They were all happy for me in the Dodgers org. everybody was like excited for me to get an opportunity. And then, yeah, I get over to the Red Sox, and I think I threw well for the beginning, and then hit a little rough stretch, like, kind of getting used to some things, different things, like different philosophies and that kind of stuff. And then I think I finished strong that year, and then didn't get called up or anything. And it was kind of just like, okay, all right, next year is the year. Got invited to big league camp for the first time in 24. And that was cool. Like being actually feeling like you're there for a reason, right? So I had backed up major league games before in spring training. I had done like a preseason thing with the Dodgers. I had done all this stuff. I felt like I was competing at that level. I was good enough. But this year, like, last spring, I felt like I was actually there for a reason. Felt like I belonged, all that stuff, and had a really good spring, threw really well. A lot of zeros, like was throwing good stuff, good velo. And the season comes along and start pretty good, and then for about 3 months I just wasn't myself. And it's like that, all right, well, if this isn't working to get me called up, what will? And that kind of thing. And like, you have to change because that's not going to work. And you just go through that, like those doubts and that second guessing. And then it's like, do you have to do like everything that's being told to you because those are the guys making the decisions? And or do you kind of keep going with what you do best? And so like I said, it was like 3 months of just not myself, not anything close to what I'm used to. There was no consistency. There was the things I was good at, I was not good at, or not as good at, I guess.
Yeah.
So like, I've always prided myself in, throwing strikes. Like every single pitch I throw is going to be competitive. The hitter's going to have to think about swinging the bat every single time. And I feel like I've had that my whole life, right?
Yeah.
I never wanted to sit around there and throw balls. I never strived to strike everyone out. I was just like, here it is, over the plate. I can move the ball around, but like, it's going to be over the plate. We're going to throw strikes. We're going to not get the 4 balls, like that kind of thing. And whatever it takes to put up zeros. That's always been my philosophy. And it was just like, I was walking people. I had uncompetitive misses.
Yeah.
I had stuff that I just wasn't used to. Each outing I felt different. It was like stuff like that where there was no consistency, and it was prolonged. It was a long stretch. Like it was all every bit of 3 months. There's obviously some mixed in good outings, whatever, but it was not, like I said, outing to outing, it did not ever feel the same. So then I had to like sit back, take a step back, and realize, okay, what am I going to do to get myself back on track? Because like at some point I'm pitching for my job. I'm pitching for my job not only this year but for my future.
Yeah.
So it was like, I think that's when I realized that, like even if the Red Sox don't want me back, like I'm pitching for next year at this point. I'm pitching to get jobs and keep playing this game and that kind of stuff. So that was probably the longest I struggled for like myself. I know I said we talked about my sophomore year in college, like that was struggles, but this was like, you're a step away from the major leagues, and it's that kind of struggle of you want to go down doing it your way and getting beat your way almost, versus not being yourself. So I know you and Smelts talked about it, but it's like, at what point do you do what you do, or at what point do you listen to other people, or how much do you pick and choose to change, or that kind of stuff. So that was my whole thing last year, and I feel like we're better for it. Like I'm a better pitcher for it. I'm a better player for it, but it was tough to get through. But now I finished the year strong, and they let me. I started like 15 games last year for the first time since college. That is like take positives out of it. Take whatever you can take from that and use it. learn to cutter. So it's like whatever you can do to get better from that is how I treated it. And yeah, like I said, I feel like I'm better for it.
Yeah, so you said a rough 3 month stretch, you said, where you're not feeling like yourself. And then, like you said, you're kind of pitching for not even just now, but like future opportunities as well. So, what did that process look like after that 3 months was up and then going into the off season? Because obviously, like you said, free agency after the year. So, what did that process look like for you both, like mentally, and then on the side of like throwing and what you're going to do every day, what you're going to incorporate?
Yeah, so luckily, I finished the year strong. So I
Yeah,
finished the year really good on a high note. Everything was clicking.
yeah,
It was kind of like how I started the year. Like I bookended the year pretty good, I feel like, in
yeah,
my opinion. So it was like I had stuff to go into the off season with and be like, all right, this is what I do well. This didn't work. I have to get away from this, do more of this. So I was super confident in going into the off season. I feel like my off seasons down here in Florida have been really good since I've been doing them down here. Like I'm super confident in what I'm doing in my off season training. I'm super happy with where I'm at, the guys I'm around. So it makes the off season like I trusted it. I trusted the off season that I'm gonna have a good one. At that point it was just okay, it's free agency, like how is this going to go, and I had no idea. Like I think I said earlier, it could have been I could have waited till spring training to sign. Like I had no idea. You don't know until teams start reaching out what the interest level is. I've never had other teams say if they like me or not, obviously, so it's
yeah,
like you don't know. My agent was preparing me. He's like, "Yeah, it could be longer. It could be right before the spring training,
yeah,
till you get signed." Like, we have no idea. And I'm sitting here. That's tough. Like when you're training without a job, it's
of
tough.
course.
And then that at the same time, that also changes the way you train because there's pro days. You might have to throw in front of scouts, that kind of thing. You kind of have to plan your off season around it. And then day one of free agency, I had 7 teams reach out to me. So I was like, all right,
Right.
there's interest.
Yeah,
At least, teams are calling, they're interested. Somebody likes something. So
yeah,
I'm probably gonna have a job. It's just
yeah,
where that is, what it is, what the role is, um, and what it's gonna look like next year. And I had, at that point I didn't know. I was just kind of letting my agent handle a couple of conversations and that kind of stuff. But I was just happy to have communication from teams. So it almost like gives you that gratification, like, okay, all right, what I was doing the last couple of years, it was working. It might not have worked for those teams to get the call up, but like it worked.
yeah,
People like what you're doing. So yeah, then from there I talked to some of the teams, some of the pitching guys with some of the teams, like go over some philosophies, like what they think of me, how I fit into their thoughts and their
yeah,
plans, and like, am I going to change what I'm doing, or am I going to overhaul, or am I going to just keep being the same? Because like I talked about last year, I feel like there was a little bit of an overhaul, and it just didn't work, and it was
yeah,
so we kind of wanted to avoid that. And then yeah, like when a team comes in, there was a couple big league offers, and it was like, all right, let's pick. And yeah, it just felt right. Like the fit felt right. Obviously, they had success last year. Like um, the coaches, everything. It just felt like it fit. Obviously, being close to home is nice. Like
yeah,
at that point, like when the offers are similar, it's like everything plays a role. Obviously, I'm gonna pick whatever my agent and I see as the best opportunity to get to the major leagues. Like that's first and foremost, number one. But then yeah, there's like secondary things like close to home. Spring training is over here. I'm living at home in spring training. I have family and friends close to New York, so it's like all those things were just kind of like add-ons at that point. It worked out, and yes, so spring comes around, and I'm having a good time, and feel like I'm throwing pretty well, and yeah, it's like everything that I felt like was going to be how it was going to be, that's how it turned out. Like the culture around the team is good, and the staff is good, and all that. So yeah, I'm happy with my decision.
Awesome. And then now, you get the MLB contract from the Mets, right? Now, previously, like, you have not made your MLB debut previously. So, how do you feel knowing that there is that level of confidence with you with the Mets? And then what was your kind of reaction hearing that, I guess? Because like you said at the beginning of the process, it's like, I don't even know if I'm going to have any interest. And then now it's like, oh, this is like a pretty substantial level of interest from like the Mets. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, like I said earlier, it was just like that gratification of like what I've been doing. It's being realized. I've never lacked confidence about my pitching. I feel like
Yeah,
I'm realistic, but at the same time, I've never lacked confidence. I think I can get good big league hitters out at a high level. So it's like that's how I see myself. Now, do other people see me as that as well or not? And it's like, all right, these guys do. So
yeah,
that was like when they told me that they think I can start in the major leagues. It's like, yeah, it lines up. It makes sense. So it was just like that. Yeah, that gratification. It was. Now, obviously, like I still have to go out and do it. I still have to go up. Knock on wood, get the call up.
of course.
But it's just like that opportunity and someone seeing that in you is like, all right, now I can even work harder at what I'm good at and get better at what I'm good at and keep pushing in that direction. And we don't have to change everything and just like, here we go. This is it. This is the shot. Like you only have so long playing. So it's like, keep going, keep pushing this direction. And yeah, optimize everything you can do right now. So yeah.
Yeah, we talked about in a previous episode like the level of motivation that you get when you do have this belief from either someone else or your organization or your college. Like when you know that they have your back and they believe in you, it's like, all right, now that just gives me an extra level of motivation to like perform. Because like not only do I believe in myself, but we have a whole group of people that also believe in my abilities and the way that I'm going to pitch too. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and it's the team that drafts you, right? So the Dodgers, like they saw you get better. They saw me get better. They saw me who I was. They saw me get better. Like I took
Yeah.
a really big jump from 2019 COVID year to 21. So like they saw all that. They saw me get better. They start to like believe in you, grow like you're growing with them. And then you go to a new team and it's like, all right, like this is just what you are. They don't really see that growth. So it's like it's just different. And then now, like you said, you have a new team that sees this new this version of myself, and that's what they like. That's what they trust. So it's like, yeah, now I have all the confidence in the world that's where all my marbles are going. Like
Yeah.
I love this guy, and that player is going to keep getting better. So yeah, like I'm never trying to. That's like when I say I don't want an overhaul, like I don't want to stay who I am. Like I want to get better. I want to
Of
keep getting
course.
better. I want to optimize all of my pitches. I want to get as good as I can, but doing it the way I'm doing it, and not being a different pitcher, but being that same pitcher. I feel like I've had success with and am confident in being.
Definitely. And then now being a South Jersey kid and signing with the Mets, how did that feel for you internally? Were you like before you're signing the contract? Are you like maybe I'm a pull back from this? Like what did that look
Yeah.
like for you
So I
mentally?
mean, there was when it was the final couple teams, it was like, wow, the Mets are really there, And especially after how the postseason had just ended, it was like,
Yeah.
wow, the Mets are really there. And I grew up a Phillies fan. I grew up all Philly sports, pretty diehard. So it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I watched the '07 comeback. Like I watched them. I watched the Mets lose the division to the Phillies. So all of my when I was talking and I was telling my family, I was like, yeah, it's looking like the Mets. It might be the Mets. I was like second guessing myself, like, do I want to tell them right now, or do I just want to go, do it?
Yeah.
But it's like, at the same time, everyone understands, obviously, and it's whatever is going to be the best path to the major leagues. That's the dream everyone has, obviously. So how can we get there? And it's like I don't want to do anything that's I feel like is going to be a lesser chance, even if it's playing for a different team. And obviously, it doesn't matter. So, whatever the best chance is, and that's where I feel like I so far I feel like I've made a great decision. Super comfortable with where I'm at. But yeah, I told all my family friends, I was like, you don't have to get Mets gear. I understand. Totally get it. Maybe don't boo me when I'm on the field, but I get it. I understand.
Devin brought up when he came back and pitched at Citizens Bank. Now, obviously, I'm just going to speak for myself. You don't have to, but I have no doubt that you're going to get to where you want to go, and those opportunities are going to come, and you're going to pitch in the big leagues. Now, the opportunity comes, and you get to pitch in the bank. What do you think those emotions are going to feel like? Obviously, you won't know exactly until you get there, but just go through how that's going to feel and how weird that's going to be now, because I'm sure you've been in those stands screaming at the opposition.
Yeah, that'd be the craziest thing.
Yeah.
Craziest thing, like especially being on a rival, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just pitching there in general, like, would be wild, insane. But pitching there as a rival, it's like, wow, this is the guy I booed growing up with. I sat there and I booed this guy in the bullpen, So it's I rooted against this guy for everything.
Yeah.
So being that guy, it's like I don't know. I don't even know what to expect. I don't know. I have no idea. I know it'll be like that, that anxious, nervous feeling, but yeah, it's just fun. I think. I feel like when I get up there, no matter what situation I've been in so far, it's like before the game, you might have those feelings, but it's like as soon as you're on the mound, I never feel any different. I feel like there's maybe a little extra adrenaline, but it's like I kind of almost lose sight of what's going on. I feel like I've been fortunate enough to pitch in a couple of different cool situations, and like I said, I think I did the preseason thing with the Dodgers in Dodger Stadium and warming up in the bullpen. It's like, okay, it's just another day. Like I remember, so I did that, and game one, it's preseason. It's like the last spring training games in Dodger Stadium, and we're at Angel Stadium, and their bullpen, it backs up against like the rocks in the outfield, right? And there's like a tiny net, but it's not very high, so you could easily sail it into the rocks. And it's the first inning. Walker Buehler's throwing, and or it's maybe the second inning, and it's like he's having a couple guys on, and they go, Hags, can you get ready for Trout? I go, sure. Like, just like those words are like just wild, right? Obviously Trout from New Jersey, and it's like, sure. Like I throw one throw and I'm ready.
Of course.
I'm literally ready to go in the game, and they go, hey, actually, could you be ready a batter sooner for Ohtani? And I'm just gets better. It doubles down, and I mean I was ready. I think he ended up getting a double play like the next pitch, so I didn't go in, but it was like one throw and I was ready to go in the game, and it's just. But even that, like I know it's a preseason, but like getting ready and that close to being in the game, it's like I don't know. I didn't really at that point. I was just like it was just pitching. I didn't really feel any different up there. So we'll see if that's any indication. It's it's kind of how I expect. It'll be nerves before the game, but during the game it'll just be hopefully another day.
Awesome, man. And then that's awesome that you were able to have those moments and share those. That's cool. And I'm sure a lot are still to come. So that's really exciting. But now moving forward, right, with the Mets, can you give us some of your goals or some of your, I guess, ambitions? Obviously, right, you said get to the MLB, but what else personal goals that you have for yourself, moving forward with the Mets?
Yeah. So, I mean, immediate goal, like this is the first spring training I built up as a starter, right?
Yeah.
So I've always been like the swing man. I've always been short. I've done everything. I've relieved, I've started, I've done literally everything you could name. But this is the first year I've actually come into the season as a starter and had that fifth day for myself. So it's like finding a way to go about that and learn from these guys, like how I can best do that and best figure out that routine and that schedule. Obviously, like whatever role it's going to be, I'm fine with. But like I said, that starter role is your dream. Obviously, like everybody wants to be a starter in the major leagues. Like that's so. I'm happy with that. Just finding a way to be ready to go out there opening day and or whatever, and start and go as deep as I can in the game right away. So that's my immediate goal. Beyond that, it's just like as many zeros I can get in the big leagues. Like that's all I can do. Right. I've always been that way. Like I said, attack, and get zeros. Right. I don't want to dance around anything. I just want to get people out, put up zeros, because like in the end of the day, that's how you win. I think like going all the way back full circle, that's how it started, right? We were just trying to win every game. We didn't care how it happened. You just try to get outs and put up zeros. So pitching is very simple when you think of it that way. And I know it kind of gets complicated with all these numbers and everything. But in the end, like how are you gonna put up zeros? So yeah, that's my goals, and however that happens is how it's gonna happen. But yeah, I think that's my biggest advice on pitching is like do what you can to get outs, do what you can to not let the guy score, because that's your goal. I kind of hope baseball trends that way again. Yeah. We'll see, but yeah.
You mentioned too picking some guys' brains with the Mets to kind of learn a process for you to kind of build up to be a starter, to carry yourself like a starter, to mentally prepare as a starter. Are there any guys or conversations that you've had already that have proven to be like helpful so far? Just because, like you said, it's kind of a new venture, new team. I know just going based off last year, the Mets seemed like a really close-knit organization, a little close-knit team. So have you gotten any feedback from any of those guys on like how you kind of conduct yourself, how you manage getting ready to be like a starter and work like a starter?
Yeah, they're definitely close, and it's like when you get in the locker room, it's different than you can imagine. Like everybody here is a good dude. They're not a nobody's out for themselves really. That's like kind of how it feels, and that's such a good feeling to have. It's like you're not getting big league by anybody. It's everybody, even if you might have had a different opinion on this guy before, but it's like he comes here and he's the first one talking to you right away. Like as a new guy, it's like that's pretty cool. Not that I've formed opinions before, but like people are like, wow, this guy, like this is the nicest guy in the world. He's talking about anything and everything. He's talking about like your family. It's like, so that being comfortable with those guys is cool. But specifically, it's like, just the starters. Griffin Canning, he wasn't here before, but he's been starting with the Angels for a couple years. We've kind of had some good talks about like just kind of the starting aspect of it. But all of them, man, they're Sean Manaea has been great. He was here before, so like he kind of gets it, and he's been around a little bit. So, but yeah, it's just a good group of guys to learn from, and excited to go at it with them.
Now, on your end, do you prefer? Just from hearing you talk and like your past pitching, do you prefer being a starter, or do you have an attachment to relieving, or is it just kind of like you said, whatever I can do to get out to the big league level in any role?
More so that whatever I can do, whatever it takes. But obviously, yes, I guess I prefer starting. I think my stuff plays pretty well as a starter. I don't think my stuff gets better when I go out there and blow it out for one inning. It kind of stays the same. Velo holds throughout a game, so that kind of stuff makes me feel like starting is a good spot for me. I was happy last year, like I said, take the positives from a bad year, but I was happy to prove to myself that like I could do it for an extended period of time and get hitters out a couple times in a game, and face the same hitters over and over again, but still get them out. It's like it's to just prove to yourself that like you can still do it. So yeah, that was like a big positive from last year. But in the end, like obviously I'm willing to be versatile, and whatever it takes, I'll do it. But yeah, starting is a good thing.
Yeah, and then now that I'm just thinking about it, you've come like completely full circle from the beginning of the conversation where we talked about Bishop Eustace and obviously being a starter there. Now, if you could go back in time theoretically and give one yourself at that point a little piece of advice, or even now, like there's a kid at Eustis that has the same dreams, he wants to go pitch in the MLB, right? What piece of advice would you give for like a high school kid, early college kid who is striving to be in the same position that you're in right now?
I think just like for me, it's like if it was go back
Yeah.
to me, it was just trust it. I feel like I've always felt very confident in myself, but it's like yeah, there's definitely those times where it's like there's not that confidence from other people. You feel like maybe I don't know your team or what scouts or whoever it might be, like there's no confidence there, and it's just like just trust it. I feel like I've always been good enough to keep moving and keep getting opportunities. Um, so yeah, just trust it, and like I said, the more trust you have, the easier it is to get better and move forward with that version of yourself. So it's like, yeah, if I didn't trust that those colleges that like didn't want me at that time, like I could have tried to revamp stuff, and
Yeah.
might have turned out for the worse, or like do stay true to the path. And but in the end, it's like that's the game you play. It's how long can you trust it, but yeah, just trust what you're doing, and just keep the confidence.
Awesome. And then I got one more question, and then we can end it. I asked Devin and Jack the same question. So, do you have any comments on Cherry Hill West baseball walking off Bishop Eustace in 2014 at Tom Trotman Field in Cherry Hill, New Jersey?
I don't remember the game too much. I just remember, and I think I touched on this earlier. It's like you hate to lose,
Yeah.
and especially that year, it was like we didn't lose. Like we might have lost whatever three
Yeah.
games all year. So it's like that's a bad feeling, and it's especially like we felt like we were the best team in the state. I think.
Yeah.
Like how like any and who no matter who came in and beat us, like or wherever we were, like it could have been a major league team. Like we felt like we were the best team, so it's like it's a bad feeling. Hate to lose.
Yeah, no, I had to throw that in there, but you guys won way more games than you lost. I mean, you guys had a incredible year, and I'm sure even the year after I graduated, you guys were awesome again. So, really commend you guys for how good you guys were and how hard you guys worked. So, really cool to see that you guys are all like doing successful things. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, if you, I'm sure any of us, but if you told us that there's that group of guys, like there's still a couple people playing at this level, it's like I don't know if we would have believed it if you told us to it. Like, just it's crazy, and we're lucky to be doing it. But yeah, just hope to keep it going with all these guys. I'm obviously rooting for Zach, Devin, and Tyler. So it's like as long as we can keep doing it, I'm sure they're the same. But I want to keep going.
Definitely, man. No, I appreciate you taking the time to come on. I definitely have no doubt that you're going to have continued success. And like you said, as long as you keep sticking on your path that's right for you, I think you're going to get to the big leagues and you're going to have success. So you definitely have fans in Matt and I and over here at the ARC podcast. So I really appreciate you coming on and talking with us. So yeah, really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a good talk, and anytime I'm always around.
Awesome, man. I really appreciate that. So take it easy, Justin.
Thanks, appreciate it.